Listen closely. In the annals of the Cold War, buried under the weight of nuclear dread and iconic spy scandals, lies a secret so profound it could have rewritten the world map. This is not a story of Moscow or Washington, but of a forgotten island in the Baltic Sea, and the night a handful of men came within a whisper of starting World War III. The year was 1975. The place, the Swedish island of Gotland. For decades, Sweden had proudly upheld its policy of armed neutrality, a delicate balancing act between the superpowers. But beneath the surface, the Swedish military and its secret signals intelligence agency, the FRA, were engaged in a silent, desperate war against a relentless intruder, Soviet submarine incursions. They knew the Soviets were there, probing their coastal defenses, mapping the seabed for potential invasion routes. They could hear them, they could track their wake, but catching one red-handed was the elusive prize. Then, on October 27, 1975, everything changed. A fisherman reported a strange object in the shallow, murky waters off Gotska Sandön. The Swedish Navy scrambled. What they found, nestled grotesquely on a rocky shelf just 20 meters below the surface, was a Soviet Whiskey-class submarine, designation S-363. It was stranded, like a beached metal whale, deep inside a restricted military zone. The world would soon know it by a different name, U-137. The press dubbed it the Whiskey on the Rocks. The surface narrative was one of navigational error, a humiliating gaffe for the Soviet Navy. But the truth, the real story, was far more sinister. For 3 tense days, while the world held its breath, Swedish intelligence officers boarded the vessel. The Soviet crew, following strict orders, had barricaded themselves inside, refusing to let the Swedes past certain compartments. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, fear, and diesel fuel. The Swedes, however, were prepared. They brought their own specialists, equipped with sensitive Geiger counters. And that's when the chilling discovery was made. The radiation signatures were unmistakable. The S-363 was not just a spy submarine. It was armed. Its torpedo tubes were not loaded with conventional practice rounds, but with live nuclear warheads. This was a violation of every tacit agreement, a flagrant act of nuclear brinkmanship that made the Cuban Missile Crisis seem almost diplomatic by comparison. The Soviets had brought tactical nuclear weapons into Swedish territorial waters. The diplomatic cables between Stockholm and Moscow burned with frantic coded messages. The Swedish government was furious. The Soviet Politburo was cornered and blustering. For 10 agonizing days, the crippled sub sat there, a loaded gun pointed at the heart of Scandinavia, as admirals and politicians played a game of chicken with atomic stakes. The crew was on the verge of scuttling the vessel to destroy the evidence. Swedish naval forces had orders to use depth charges to prevent its escape. One wrong move, one panicked junior officer, one misunderstood signal, and the Baltic Sea could have become a radioactive crater. Finally, on November 5th, under the watchful eyes of Swedish destroyers, and with a Soviet rescue tug standing by, the high tide lifted the S-363 free. It slipped back into international waters, taking its deadly secret with it. The Soviets never admitted to the nuclear weapons, of course. It remained an official navigational error. So what is the legacy of the Whiskey on the Rocks? It is a stark monument to the lies that underpinned the Cold War. It reveals that the unthinkable was not just a concept, but a constant, hidden reality. The greatest dangers were not always in the public confrontations, but in the silent, shadowy intrusions where a single malfunctioning gyrocompass could have triggered the unthinkable. It forces us to ask, how many other nuclear ghosts were lurking in the shallow waters of the world, and how many are still there today, waiting to be found?